I had to sleep with my brother to prove to my parents that he was obsessed with me. It all started when he would bury his head under my skirt. He kept challenging me to climb an old tree house, which I finally did, only to realize he could see up my skirt as I climbed. I screamed at him to stop looking, and he acted like I was disgusting for thinking he was looking. The whole situation was super weird, so I just let it go and never mentioned it again. A few months later, I caught him looking at my photos on my phone. Of course, a big fight happened and my parents got involved. He told them he was trying to delete an ugly photo I had taken of him somehow. My parents saw it as if we were both in the wrong. I didn't have anything scandalous there, but it just felt so wrong for him to be looking at my photos. 2 years later, when we were moving to a new house, my brother and I found out we would be sharing the same bathroom. My brother acted annoyed, but I could see the smile on his face. He never knocked when I was in the shower. Instead, he just tried to see if the door was locked. Eventually, the inevitable happened. I forgot to lock the door, and he barged in. Fortunately, I was still dressed. I told my parents about it, and instead of the solution being that he should knock, the solution was that I should use the guest bathroom downstairs. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. A few nights ago, after a family barbecue, I went back to my room and noticed that the pants I had changed out of before everyone arrived were out of the laundry basket and on the floor. When I got up to do the laundry the next morning, I realized that the panties I was wearing with those pants were missing. I wanted to scream my brother's name and storm into his room, but it would be pointless. The idea of confronting him about it and him trying to manipulate me again was so exhausting that I simply didn't say anything. I knew my younger brother was guilty, but I had no concrete proof, and I was sure that if I confronted him or told my parents, he would just try to manipulate me again and make me feel crazy. A few days later, I noticed that some of the bright pink and orange panties were missing from my dresser, but this time I said nothing and acted like I didn't know anything. The next part of my plan was a bit sneaky. I was thinking about how to get him to hit on me or something like that, so I could record it and show my parents. So I decided on something. My parents were going to another city for the wedding of 2 of their friends. This day would be perfect to put the plan into action, so the day arrived. I thought of all the ways to provoke him, and the most effective way I found was to pretend I was using the bathroom and stay inside wearing just the bottom of my bikini, waiting for him to barge in as he always did. As expected, he broke in through the door as usual, but I didn't expect the reaction he had. He stood there staring at me as if he wanted to pounce on me, just like a wolf looks at its prey defensively, but at the same time with a scared expression. This time I did it differently. I didn't scream, I didn't move away, I didn't make a scene. I just stared into his eyes with a tempting expression. I smiled and asked, "Do you like what you see?" He was startled again and said, "Of course, I've always hoped for this sight." At that moment, I knew my plan was going to work. He asked to touch, and with the utmost disgust I let him because I knew it would help. Then I called him to my room where I had left my phone recording, and we started talking. I asked all kinds of questions, taking advantage of the fact that everything was being recorded. Finally, my parents would see the person he really was. He literally confessed to me, saying that every day he slept with my underwear on his face, saying that my body was beautiful, and that he always wanted a woman like me for himself. He said that every time he watched movies, he imagined himself with me. At this point, he was also touching himself. I then wanted the final proof to be able to rub it in my parents' faces and anyone who doubted me. I kept touching on delicate subjects until he invited me to sleep with him and make love. I had all the proof I needed, but it wasn't enough for me. So we did it, twice. My parents would still take 2 days to arrive, and during this period, he kept insisting we do it again. I said no, as it was risky and they could arrive at any moment. When my parents arrived, I felt the greatest happiness I had ever felt in my entire life. I couldn't wait to rub that video in their faces and prove that I was right all along. When they entered the house, the first thing I did was open the video and show it to them. They were horrified, saying that they had just arrived and I was doing something like this. They said I should have refused and shouldn't have slept with my brother or let him touch me. They said I probably encouraged his behavior by wearing the type of clothes I wear and that I was crazy to do all that. I broke down in tears. I didn't understand why they were judging me. The video literally showed everything that happened. My brother was guilty. This should have happened to him, not me. That was the last straw for me. I packed my things and went to a friend's house. Men who gave the creepy girl a chance. How'd it go? There was this girl who came into my coffee shop every morning for 3 months straight. Always ordered the same thing, always asked me out when I handed her the receipt. I turned her down politely every time, but she never seemed bothered by it. She'd just smile and say, maybe tomorrow, before walking out. I'm not gonna lie, she gave me weird vibes from the start. Nothing I could really put my finger on, just this feeling in my gut. But she was always super nice to the other staff and never caused problems, so I figured I was being unfair judging her on appearance alone. One Tuesday morning during a slow shift, she asked again, and for some reason I just said yes. Maybe I felt bad for turning her down so many times. Maybe I was bored. I don't know. But her whole face lit up like I just told her she won the lottery. I told her to write her number on the napkin, and I text her to set something up. That night around 8 p.m. I got a text. Hey, it's Nora from the coffee shop. I know this is super last minute, but I'm free tonight if you want to grab dinner. No pressure though. I texted back saying I already had plans with friends, but maybe we could do something this weekend. She responded immediately with, sounds perfect. Can't wait. The next morning she came in at her usual time. I made her regular order, and when I handed it to her, she leaned in close and whispered, your apartment looked really nice last night. I loved the blue couch in your living room, and that poster of The Godfather above your TV is such a good choice. My stomach dropped. I definitely never told her where I lived. I forced a smile and said I needed to check on something in the back. My hands were shaking as I pulled up my apartment building security app on my phone. We have cameras in the hallways and outside entrances because there were some break-ins last year. I scrolled back to last night around 9 p.m. and there she was, standing directly outside my ground floor living room window, just standing there in the dark, watching. The timestamp showed she stayed for an hour and 12 minutes. At one point, she even had her phone out like she was taking pictures. I felt sick. I went back out front and told her as calmly as I could that she needed to leave and not come back to the shop. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. What? Why? What did I do wrong? She asked, her voice getting louder. I kept my voice low and said, Nora, you were outside my apartment last night. I have you on camera. That's not okay. She grabbed my arm across the counter and said, I was just making sure you were safe. You told me you live alone in a ground floor apartment, and I wanted to make sure nobody was bothering you. I was protecting you. I never told you any of that, I said, pulling my arm back. I never told you where I live. How did you even find my address? Her whole face changed. The tears stopped instantly, and she just stared at me with this blank expression. Then she smiled and said, you told me that on the napkin. You wrote your address next to your number, remember? I absolutely did not. I only wrote my number. My manager heard the conversation getting heated and came over. Nora started full-on sobbing, saying we had this deep connection, and I was making a huge mistake by pushing her away. She said she'd been planning our future together for months and couldn't believe I was throwing it all away over a misunderstanding. My manager, bless her, told Nora she needed to leave immediately or she'd call the police. Nora looked at me one more time and said, you'll regret this. I was the best thing that ever could have happened to you. Then she grabbed her coffee and walked out. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Over the next week, I got 67 text messages from her number. The first few were apologetic, then they got angry, then they got scary. She knew my work schedule. She knew what gym I went to. She knew my sister's name and where she worked. The final text said, I know you blocked me, but I can still see you. I'll always be able to see you. I filed a police report that day with all the security footage and screenshots of every message. The officer told me it was enough for a restraining order. When they went to serve her the papers, they found a journal in her apartment. It had detailed logs of everywhere I went for the past 4 months, my daily routines, photos of me at work, even a list of my friends' names that she'd somehow figured out. She's not allowed within 500 feet of me now. I switched coffee shops. I also got blackout curtains.